So the president's sagging poll numbers may be hurting some Democrats, as we were just talking about, but they are getting a lot of support from one group in particular. A published report this weekend suggests that America's teachers' unions could spend more than $80 million in this election cycle. That's a record-setting number. And it's not going to Washington, but instead to these state-level races. So what are they after? Here to talk about that, Dana Lesh. She hosts Dana on the Blaze TV and is the author of the brand new book, Hands Off My Gun, says Dana. And she's here to talk about that. Defeating the Plot to Disarm America is the subtitle of that book. It comes out tomorrow. Dana, good to have you here tonight.
Thanks,
welcome.
Martha, for having me.
So let's talk first a little bit about the teachers union, because they're putting a lot of money into the state level races, and they're going after things like merit pay. They're going after school choice, all of these issues that are, in many ways very popular in a lot of the states that they're targeting.
Yeah, this highlights, Martha, this highlights a complete disconnect between union leadership and union members, because I have been hearing from members of the NEA, members of different teachers unions, who say, look, we like to have that control and that sovereignty in our classroom in things like Common Core and merit pay. We want to be rewarded for good results, and we want to be able to have more influence in our curricula and also have local representation in school boards and have parents more involved. And yet they're spending money, the union bosses of these teachers unions are spending money on candidates who are advocating for policies that take all of that away from these teachers.
And they're going after Wisconsin, Michigan. Those are places where the GOP has done a lot of education reform, so they're targeting those places. Now Connecticut, Colorado, Florida, those are places where GOP reformers want to have this kind of impact to help the students, to help the kids in the classroom.
And here in New York, especially with charter schools, there was the Anise versus the mayor, which Will Cain did a really good job highlighting, de Blasio's battle with these charter schools. There's a lottery, there's a waiting list to even get into the lottery, to get into these charter schools.
Are desperate to get into these schools. Their parents want them to get into these schools. The NAACP is siding with the union on this. The NAACP against these children, many of them in inner cities who are struggling to grow up and go to a better school. And it turns out that the unions are spending a lot of money to fight against that.
Which doesn't make any sense. They're advocating to their own detriment. They're advocating against their own self-interest where it comes to education. And, the product is the children and their academic achievements. And they do better with charter schools. There's been a study done in Chicago about merit pay as well. They do better. That's where the proof is.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about the book, because tonight, thank you for being here, because it's your first stop on the book tour. It's called Hands Off My Gun.
That's right.
Something that I know you feel very strongly about.
Yeah.
And you say that in this book you tell your personal story about what made you so passionate about this issue.
Yeah, I mean, my family's from rural Missouri. They're from the Ozarks. And so growing up, if you called the law down in southern Missouri, you were lucky if the law showed up in like 25 to 30 minutes, because some of these counties are huge and they may only have a couple of deputies. And on average, the national response time when you call 911 is 20 minutes. That's 20 minutes too long to gamble. And so I had a story where I had my aunt who was assaulted and attempted, her ex-husband now tried to kill her. And so she ran through the woods with nothing but her night clothes, showed up at my grandparents' house, and it was just me there with my cousin, her daughter, and my grandfather. They called the law, but he had to go sit on the porch with his shotgun because they knew that the estranged husband, he had threatened to kill her. He was on his way. And as a kid, I was terrified, because you don't want children to ever feel unsafe. They should feel safe with adults. And that was my first experience with the Second Amendment and with firearms, aside from hunting, was that sense of safety, knowing that my grandfather, if the law didn't show up in time, my grandpa was going to be there to be able to help defend the family if, this estranged uncle showed up.
That it was a sign of safety, and so much of the press that it gets is that it is a sign of danger.
And statistically, it is 60 times more over firearms are used in defensive cases, more so than for criminal acts.
Dana, good luck on your book tour. Good
Thank
to have
you so much.
Nice to see you. We'll see you soon.